Hello everyone, good morning and welcome back to Sports Today. Now, we know for a fact that the world of sport is such a thing that there's so much going on that sometimes when you, me and pretty much everyone else who's even involved or in love with sport, we end up missing out on certain things happening, on certain developments that may have happened. The world of sport, of course, never really sleeps, but in order to help you catch up with all of those things, well, that's why we do this video every morning on a daily basis to help you catch up with some of the interesting things that have happened in the world of sport whilst we were getting some rest. So without further ado, let's just get straight to it and let's start off with a little bit of a heated exchange that took place during the Ashes Test or day 2 of the Ashes Test. Now, Steve Smith had of course gotten dismissed by Moeen Ali playing a rather untrademarked shot because he went for a slog of the 9th ball of his innings and just ended up finding the fielder at mid-wicket. In fact, it was a very unconventional, uncharacteristic shot, but what also was, well, not so unconventional or uncharacteristic really, was the fact that he was given a bit of a sending off by one Jonny Bairstow. In fact, Jonny Bairstow simply ran past him and said, "See you later, smudge," to which Smith, visibly agitated, turned around, said, "Wait, what is it you're saying?" And then he said, "Hey, what are you saying?" And Bairstow simply said, "I said, see you later, smudge," and pointed that way. Quite clearly, whatever hostilities the players were feeling towards each other, as well as, let's say, whatever had happened in the last test, where of course the whole spirit of cricket thing got reignited yet again, Bairstow's dismissal, there is, and it is worth noting that Bairstow has said absolutely nothing at this point about that entire incident, but it is pretty clear that he's feeling a little bit of resentment, and that can be a dangerous thing or can be a double-edged sword, because on one hand, Bairstow has shown in the past that when you sledge him or you say something or you get under his skin, more often than not it will motivate him to perform really well. I mean, the best example of that could be seen during that one-off test between India and England in 2022, whereby Kohli had sledged him, Bairstow went on to get 100 and England chased down a target of over 300 plus with relative ease, let's say. It wasn't a tough chase at all, and Bairstow ended up getting that century. So Bairstow right now is clearly in that mode, but it could also backfire because if he intends going too hard, sometimes that can actually have the opposite result of what exactly it is that you're intending. Of course, we know for a fact that England are feeling hard done by. You've gotten that from the comments of their coach, Brendan McCullum, by Ben Stokes' comments as well. But what it's doing, and truth be told, this is what you really enjoy as a neutral, it's adding a lot of bite and a lot of spice to the series, and I for one am absolutely here for it. I know a lot of people won't be very keen or will not enjoy the fact that Bairstow gave Smith a send-off, but I say as long as he didn't abuse him, and in this case there's absolutely no indication because the words which were caught on the stump mic, and all he said was "see you later, smudge," so there's no abuse here, no crossing of a line. I say, you know what, fair enough, can say what it is he said, and obviously that was a very big wicket for the English players. Now, another big talking point of this test match has of course been England continuously falling to short balls, and this is something that hasn't escaped the attention of a lot of people, including former England captain Michael Vaughan, who in a tweet actually spoke about their struggles, and this is what he said. He said that 13 out of the last 24 wickets the Aussie seamers have taken have fallen to England's pull shots. I will give them a clue. It's not working. Now again, this has been a tactic that Pat Cummins has employed very nicely. In fact, you can say that he's done it with a great let's say if it's been done to great effect, for the very simple reason that in England you've been getting slightly, let's say, flatter pitches where you're not really getting that much movement with the ball, and even whatever movement is there, it's early on, and thereafter the conditions are easing out significantly to bat. But they've used the short ball tactic to great effect, and England's batsmen have had no response at this point. In fact, as one rightly points out, 24 wickets that the Aussies have taken at this point, 13 of them have fallen to a pull shot. Now that's a damning statistic, and it does show, one, that Australia are of course pretty relentless with the tactic, but that England as of yet don't really have a response to that tactic. And the one advantage that Australia have is that they have a lot of bowlers who can actually consistently hit that net. I mean, they have someone like Cummins, of course, Mitch Marsh can hit the hard lengths and generate some awkward bounce. Cummins, in fact, has been especially successful. He got a 6-wicket haul in the first innings. So they do have the bowlers to be able to pull off that kind of game as well. Of course, can't forget Mitch Starc. So there is definitely method to their madness. It's been working really well, and as Michael Vaughan points out, the pull shot is just not working. So maybe just maybe try and find another tactic, because this one clearly isn't cutting it at this point in time. And speaking of things that aren't really cutting it right now, there's plenty of concern over the form of one David Warner, because again, David Warner in the second innings, he faced 5 balls overall, 2 of which were to Stuart Broad, and the second of those balls was the one on which he got out. Now, of course, Stuart Broad has now taken Warner's wicket a mammoth 17 times in test matches. That is not a good record for anyone to have. In fact, if you can see Warner's reaction here, it's very much a wry smile, and even he knows really that there's not much that he could have done, or at least there's not much that he's seemingly able to do right now when it comes to being able to see out Stuart Broad. Unfortunately, his poor form in recent times have once again reignited the debate over whether or not he would even be playing in the next test match, assuming Australia can either draw or win this match, because then they'd have retained the Ashes and they cannot afford to be carrying Warner the way they are. In fact, former Australia wicketkeeper Ian Healy has said that there should be debates over whether or not Warner is playing the 4th test, because he's just been struggling. And it is worth noting, even in Warner in his prime, was always someone who struggled in English conditions. This time around, though, they've been exacerbated by the fact that his form coming into the series was already poor. There were question marks over whether or not he'd even be starting. And he's come up against the one person who's made him his bunny, and that is, of course, Stuart Broad. It's consistently been troubling and consistently got him out. And right now, there do seem to be plenty of question marks over whether or not David Warner, even if he's available, should be starting test matches. What are your thoughts? You can let us know those in the comments below. But right now, let's keep our focus on certain other news items. And there's an interesting one that's coming from the West Indies. They've named their squad for the test series against India, and in the first test squad they've handed a recall to one Rakeem Cornwall. Now, Cornwall, of course, is a spin bowling all-rounder who has, generally speaking, been playing plenty of cricket in say T20 leagues and domestically, but last actually played a test match in 2021. So it's been nearly 2 years that he's last played his test match, and he's been handed a recall for this particular match. Of course, they've brought in a couple of younger players as well, so we don't really know what the thinking is behind the West Indies squad in that regard, because they've not gone for a lot of experience. Of course, they have experienced players as well. There's the likes of Brathwaite, and even their bowling lineup looks pretty strong. But bringing in Cornwall, maybe it is, of course, to bolster the spin bowling attack a little bit, and the fact that generally speaking in West Indies, pitches tend to favor spinners. But again, bringing someone in from the cold after nearly 2 years speaks volumes about also the lack of talent depth that the West Indies have at this point, because again, they could have gone for pretty much anyone, but they went for Cornwall, who, truth be told, had a pretty mixed test career, and there weren't many eyebrows raised when he was dropped. Also worth noting, he wasn't part of the centrally contracted players. So the fact that they're bringing him in means it's something of a, let's say, left of field decision. Sticking to more cricket news, and this is an interesting one, Ambati Rayudu, who is supposed to be part of the Texas Super Kings for the inaugural edition of Major League Cricket, will now not be playing that tournament. In fact, in a statement that was put out by TSK on their official handle, they posted a picture of Rayudu, and they said that Ambati Rayudu will not be available to participate in the first season of the MLC, that's Major League Cricket, with Texas Super Kings due to personal reasons. He will continue to cheer for the team from India. Now again, this whole personal reasons things has gotten a lot of tongues wagging, because of course, if you've been following the news lately, you'd know that there has been plenty of talk within the BCCI of introducing a cooling off period of sorts for players who have just retired, to ensure that they don't simply just retire and then go and take off and start playing in foreign T20 leagues. Now, there was some chatter that this might be the reason behind it, but it is also worth noting that Rayudu has been speaking a lot recently about entering a career in politics, so maybe this is just him pulling out to focus on that side of his life, because again, starting a career in politics is not easy, no matter how much name recognition you may have from your other life. In this case, Rayudu's stint as cricketer who's played for India, and of course has won plenty of IPL titles with both CSK and the Mumbai Indians. So this is definitely, it could very well be nothing, but again, personal reasons doesn't really say a lot, because it does just seem to be one of those vague reasons. So keep an eye on this. It could very well be a story that develops over time. You might just get to hear something from Rayudu himself. We know for a fact he's someone who speaks his mind regardless of the consequences. Who can forget the time when he retired and then unretired? It just tends to happen with him. So let's keep an eye on that. Another bit of news, and this is unfortunately not in the good vein. Football fans a certain age will all remember Manchester United goalkeeper Edwin van der Sar, widely considered not just one of the best Dutch goalkeepers, but one of the best goalkeepers ever, and certainly someone who, even when he came into the Premier League at an advanced age, transformed just how Manchester United played. Well, he's actually suffered bleeding around his brain and he had to be hospitalized. In fact, the club that he was last working for, a sporting director, that is Ajax Amsterdam, put out this statement on social media where they said that on Friday, Edwin van der Sar had a bleeding around his brain. He's currently in hospital in the intensive care unit and is in a stable condition. Once there is more concrete information, an update will follow. Everyone at Ajax wishes Edwin a speedy recovery. We're thinking of you. Now, of course, this has been followed by an outpouring of well wishes, not just from fans, but even Van der Sar's former clubs have also tweeted out saying that we're keeping you in our prayers, our hopes and prayers, thoughts and prayers are with you. And this is just a bit of an unfortunate situation because again, no one could see it coming, and we really hope that Van der Sar makes a speedy recovery. It's good news that we got from Ajax that he is in fact he's in the ICU but is at the very least in a stable condition, because such things, well, they can obviously be very, very, very scary. Another bit of interesting news for those of you who are following, you know that this is a Formula 1 race weekend, and in a rather surprising turn of events, in the second free practice session held on Friday, it is the Williams cars of Logan Sargent and Alexander Albon that were right up there in the mix as far as being in the top of the time charts. Now, they weren't obviously P1 and P2, but Albon was P3 and Sargent was P5, which is pretty impressive when you think about the fact that the Williams is on average right down there with one of the 3 slowest cars in Formula 1. They've obviously been bringing a few upgrades to the car, and it does seem like miraculously these upgrades are having a really good impact on just how it is the car is functioning. Now, can they carry this form going into the weekend in, let's say, qualifying, or how it is that the team does when it comes to the race? We don't know yet, because again, practice can be a very deceptive thing. You will more often than not end up kind of getting these teams randomly top the time charts, and then when it comes to qualifying in the race, they're nowhere near. But it's still a good sign for the team, especially when you consider that the last 2 or 3 seasons Williams have been competing with the back markers, and this, by the way, if they can maintain this form, will be impressive also, because this weekend is a special weekend for the Williams team. It will be their 800th Grand Prix race, so they've even got a special livery for the car to commemorate the fact that this is going to be their 800th race. So if they can get a good result this weekend, well, what better way to celebrate that, right? Now, switching our focus to the world of tennis, and Andy Murray unfortunately was eliminated from Wimbledon relatively earlier than he would have thought or wanted to be eliminated, by, of course, losing to Greek Stefanos Tsitsipas. And Murray has cast him down over his future in the sport, saying that he doesn't really know if he'll be here in Wimbledon next year. He did go on to clarify that, look, I'm not thinking of retirement just yet, but it is definitely about taking things on a day-to-day basis and seeing how it is I feel as time goes along. He also added that previously he has had thoughts about retirement and just calling it quits, because as he said, constantly getting knocked out early on in big tournaments will do that to you. But he said that as of now, he intends to continue playing right now, but he can't really be sure whether or not he'll be back in Wimbledon. If this really was the last bout, it's a bit of a shame that he had to go out this way, but considering the kind of injury issues that he had with his hip and the fact that he had to basically get a hip replacement, the fact that he can even be playing at all is very much a miracle, and I guess you should just be enjoying Andy Murray while you still can. And that's it from us from this edition of the Morning Wrap with Sports Today. Thank you guys so much for joining us. If you enjoyed it, please don't forget, like, share, subscribe, tap the bell icon, leave us a comment, follow us on Instagram, Twitter and Facebook, and don't forget to download the SportsTech app as well. Plus, if you're already on the channel, go ahead, check out some other videos that we've done. But for now, from my side, it's goodbye.